The sound of a gavel striking echoed like a thunderclap across the packed courtroom. Cameras flashed. Reporters jostled against the wooden rails, their voices rising in a cacophony of questions no one dared answer. And then it happened. A woman's voice pierced the heavy silence, trembling with rage and sorrow all at once. "That's my son," she screamed, pointing a shaking finger toward the defendant's bench. "You stole him from me, and you're going to jail." It was the kind of scene no one could have imagined in their wildest dreams. Not here. Not in London's High Court. Not with Meghan Markle sitting in the defendant's chair, her trademark composure cracking under the weight of an allegation so explosive it threatened to shatter the very foundation of her carefully crafted image. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Outside the courthouse, the streets were a sea of flashing lights and roaring voices. Protesters waved signs, some demanding justice for the mysterious woman who claimed her baby had been stolen, others defending Meghan with slogans like "Leave Meghan alone" and "Protect Archie's mother." The air was thick with confusion, betrayal, and something else, fear. For years, Meghan Markle had stood as a symbol of rebellion against royal tradition, a modern duchess who fought to live life on her own terms. But now, with whispers of DNA tests and fraudulent birth records swirling like a toxic storm, her fairy tale narrative was in danger of unraveling completely. The leak that started it all came in the dead of night. A PDF file, sent anonymously to tabloid journalists and royal commentators. The document claimed to be a certified DNA report, showing results so shocking they left even seasoned editors speechless. According to the report, there was no maternal match between Meghan Markle and the child the world knew as Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. It was the ultimate betrayal. Or was it? Almost immediately, questions began to swirl. Could the document be authentic? Who had leaked it? And if the results were real, how could Meghan possibly explain them? The woman behind the lawsuit didn't wait for the dust to settle. Within hours of the leak, she filed an emergency petition in court, alleging that Meghan Markle had stolen her newborn son, forged birth certificates, and conspired to pass the baby off as her own in a desperate bid to secure her place in the royal family. At her first press conference, she was visibly shaking as she clutched a crumpled photograph of a tiny infant in a hospital blanket. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I carried him for 9 months. I went through the pain, the fear, the joy, only to have him ripped from my arms. She took everything from me. Everything." The world watched in stunned silence as this woman, unknown until now, stepped into the glare of the global spotlight, declaring war against one of the most famous women on earth. But this wasn't just about Meghan. This was about Harry too. Eyewitnesses claimed that after the leak, Prince Harry had retreated into complete isolation. He was said to be devastated, wandering the Montecito estate in a daze, refusing to speak even to close friends. One insider whispered, "He doesn't know what's true anymore. He's questioning everything. His marriage, his family, his entire life." And then there was the royal family. Buckingham Palace issued a statement so brief it only fanned the flames of speculation. "This is a private matter and will not be addressed publicly at this time." But behind palace walls, sources claimed the Queen was in tears, Prince Charles was furious, and Prince William had stopped taking Harry's calls altogether. How did it come to this? How did Meghan Markle, the same woman who once captivated millions with her fairy tale wedding, become the center of such a nightmarish scandal? As the case unfolds, the world is being forced to confront uncomfortable questions. Was Meghan a victim of a cruel smear campaign designed to destroy her once and for all? Or is there truth to the claim that she orchestrated a web of lies so intricate it fooled even her own husband? And what about Archie? Where does he fit into all of this? Is he truly the son of Meghan Markle, or the child of another woman entirely, torn from his biological mother in the name of royal ambition? One thing is certain, this story is far from over. As we take you deeper into this shocking saga, you'll discover the secrets behind the DNA leak, hear the heart-wrenching testimony of the woman fighting for her child, and uncover the powerful forces working to keep the truth hidden. Stay with us until the very end, because what we're about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, and the future of the royal family. And when all is said and done, only one question will remain. Who is telling the truth? The night the leak happened, the world changed forever. It wasn't announced in a press conference or revealed in a carefully written royal statement. Instead, it was a single email sent from an untraceable account, landing like a silent bomb in the inboxes of journalists and royal commentators. The subject line read simply, "The truth about Archie." Attached was a PDF file no larger than 2 megabytes, but its contents would send shockwaves across continents. A DNA report, allegedly from a discreet Californian laboratory, stamped with a seal of authenticity, claimed to show that Meghan Markle had no biological link to the child known globally as Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. The numbers didn't lie, or so it seemed. Under the heading Maternal Match, the report showed a cold, clinical phrase, "Zero biological relation detected." For years, rumors and conspiracy theories had circulated about Archie's birth. Whispers of surrogate mothers and hidden hospital visits had been dismissed as cruel gossip by Meghan's defenders and rabid speculation by her critics. But now, staring at the DNA report, even the most loyal supporters felt the ground shifting beneath their feet. Within hours, social media erupted. #ArchieDNA trended worldwide. News anchors struggled to keep pace as fresh details emerged by the minute. Who leaked the report? Was it authentic? And if so, what did this mean for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? In the early hours of the morning, as Londoners prepared for another day, the first shocking video surfaced. It showed a distraught woman standing on the steps of the High Court in London, clutching a baby blanket in her hands. Her voice shook as she addressed a growing crowd of reporters. "My name is Grace Holloway," she said, her words trembling yet defiant. "I am the biological mother of Archie Harrison, and I will not rest until my son is returned to me." Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Grace simply raised the tiny blanket to her face and inhaled deeply, as if trying to hold on to a memory she feared was slipping away. Inside the courtroom, Meghan Markle sat still as stone. Her usual poise seemed to falter under the harsh fluorescent lights. Her legal team whispered urgently, sliding papers across the table. She didn't look up. Prince Harry sat beside her, his hands clasped tightly as though in prayer. His face, pale and drawn, betrayed the internal storm raging within him. This wasn't just another tabloid scandal. This was something darker. Grace's lawsuit painted a horrifying picture. According to her claim, she had been coerced into giving up her child under false pretenses shortly after birth. She alleged that powerful figures connected to Meghan had conspired to falsify hospital records, ensuring Archie would be listed as Meghan's biological child. "They stole him from me," Grace sobbed to the press outside the courtroom. "They told me I wasn't fit to be his mother. They lied to me, and now they've built a life on my pain." But Meghan's lawyers hit back hard. In a statement read to the press, her lead counsel declared, "These accusations are false, defamatory, and part of a coordinated effort to destroy the Duchess's reputation. We will fight them with every legal resource available." Yet even as Meghan's team worked tirelessly to shut down the story, cracks were beginning to form in the once perfect narrative she and Harry had built around their young family. Insiders close to the Sussexes whispered that Harry had demanded a private retest after learning of the leak. One friend reportedly told a journalist, "Harry doesn't know what's real anymore. He's questioning everything, his marriage, his son's birth, even his own judgment." Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace maintained a stony silence. The official line was that this was a private matter. But royal watchers noted the Queen's absence from her usual engagements, speculating on her emotional state. Prince Charles was said to be livid, while Prince William reportedly refused to speak to Harry at all. Outside the courtroom, the crowd grew daily. Some came with placards reading "Justice for Grace," while others waved banners proclaiming "Protect Meghan and Archie." The atmosphere was electric, tense, and volatile. And then, on the third day of hearings, the drama reached fever pitch. As Meghan entered the courtroom, Grace broke free from the crowd and screamed, "That's my son. You stole him. You're going to jail." Security intervened, dragging Grace away as cameras rolled and reporters shouted questions. The footage aired within minutes on every major news outlet, igniting fierce debate around the globe. Could Meghan have orchestrated such an elaborate deception? Or was this simply the desperate act of a grieving woman seeking attention? As the first week of the trial ended, no one had answers. Only questions, and a growing sense that whatever truths were about to emerge would change everything, not just for Meghan and Harry, but for the very future of the monarchy itself. This was not just a custody battle. It was a war for truth, reputation, and the soul of a family torn apart by secrets. And as the world watched with bated breath, one thought hung heavy in the air. If the DNA test was real, what would become of Archie? From the moment Meghan Markle stepped onto the world stage as Prince Harry's girlfriend, she had crafted a narrative that felt almost cinematic. She was the actress turned duchess, the trailblazer who dared to challenge centuries of royal protocol. And when she became a mother, the image solidified. Meghan, the loving and protective parent, shielding her child from the glare of the media, while simultaneously redefining what it meant to raise a royal heir in the modern world. But as the DNA scandal gained traction, that carefully built image began to crack. In the days following the court filing, every moment of Meghan's public life as a mother was placed under an unforgiving microscope. Archival footage of Meghan holding Archie during public appearances was replayed endlessly on news channels and dissected in social media threads. Some claimed to notice subtle signs that now seemed suspicious. Was the baby carrier she used on that stroll through Cape Town in 2019 positioned too awkwardly for a biological mother? Why had there been no photographs of Meghan in a hospital gown immediately following Archie's birth? And why had the royal couple been so fiercely protective of even the most basic details surrounding his arrival? For Meghan's detractors, these questions weren't new. They had been whispered in online forums and tabloid columns for years. But now, in light of Grace Holloway's lawsuit and the leaked DNA report, they were being asked aloud by mainstream commentators, turning speculation into a firestorm. Look back at the first photos they released of Archie, one royal biographer said during a heated television panel. You never see Meghan in a truly intimate mother-child moment. It's all curated, all controlled. What were they hiding? On social media, viral videos emerged with titles like 10 times Meghan seemed distant with Archie, and was this the moment Harry realized the truth? Each one garnered millions of views within hours, feeding an insatiable appetite for scandal. Yet for every critic, there was a defender. I can't believe we're entertaining this, a longtime Meghan supporter posted on X, formerly Twitter. This is a woman who endured racism, harassment, and a mental health crisis while pregnant. Now people want to rip apart her bond with her child? Disgusting. Still, even some of Meghan's staunchest allies admitted that the circumstances of Archie's birth had been unconventional. The secrecy began with Meghan and Harry's decision to forego the traditional royal birthing protocol. Unlike Kate Middleton, who had posed with all three of her children on the steps of St. Mary's Hospital within hours of delivery, Meghan opted for privacy. She gave birth at Portland Hospital in London, but the media weren't informed until Meghan and Harry were already back at Frogmore Cottage. The official birth announcement was posted several hours later, and Meghan's first public appearance as a mother came days after the birth in a tightly controlled photo call at Windsor Castle. At the time, the Sussexes framed the decision as a necessary step to protect their child from the relentless scrutiny of the press. But in the wake of the DNA leak, critics painted a different picture, one of a woman desperate to control the narrative, possibly to conceal a truth too explosive to reveal. As journalists dug deeper, they unearthed discrepancies that had previously gone unnoticed. One royal correspondent discovered that Archie's original birth certificate had been quietly amended weeks after it was filed, removing Meghan's name and replacing it with the phrase, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. At the time, the change was attributed to palace bureaucracy. But now, conspiracy theorists claimed it was evidence of a cover-up. Meanwhile, Grace Holloway's legal team capitalized on these details to bolster her case. In a scathing court filing, they accused Meghan of orchestrating an elaborate fraud to cement her position within the royal family and secure her financial future. The document detailed how Grace allegedly gave birth to a healthy baby boy in early May 2019 at a private clinic in Surrey, only to have hospital administrators inform her that her son had been placed in foster care due to unforeseen complications. They told me I wasn't fit to raise him, Grace said in a tearful interview with a daytime talk show. They told me he'd have a better life elsewhere. And then I saw the photos. Meghan holding him. smiling like he was hers. I couldn't believe it. My baby. That was my baby. For Meghan, the fallout was swift and merciless. Tabloids plastered headlines across their front pages. Was Archie ever Meghan's? Stolen child scandal rocks the royals, and Grace's fight for her son. Paparazzi camped outside Meghan and Harry's Montecito mansion, hoping to catch a glimpse of Archie or, better yet, an emotional confrontation between the Duke and Duchess. Behind the gates of the sprawling estate, insiders claimed Meghan was unraveling. According to one unnamed source, she spent hours locked in her bedroom, refusing to eat or speak, as Harry pleaded with her to explain the truth. But Meghan wasn't silent in public. In a video message posted to the couple's Archwell website, Meghan appeared seated beside Harry, her face pale, but her voice steady. "I want to make this perfectly clear," she began. "I carried Archie. I gave birth to Archie. I am his mother, and no amount of lies or fabricated evidence will change that." The statement did little to stem the tide. As the court date for the first hearing approached, more revelations emerged. A former nurse at Portland Hospital anonymously claimed that she never saw Meghan on the maternity ward during the days surrounding Archie's birth. Instead, she alleged, there were unusual visitors in the neonatal unit under heavy security. The nurse's claims, though unverified, sent shockwaves through an already frenzied public. If Meghan hadn't given birth to Archie, then where had the child come from? And why would Harry go along with such a deception? As the pressure mounted, Buckingham Palace reportedly convened an emergency meeting. Though they had publicly distanced themselves from Harry and Meghan since Megxit, sources suggested that senior royals feared the scandal could tarnish the monarchy's reputation. "They're terrified this will stick," one palace insider told a journalist. "If Meghan is proven to have stolen a child, it could make Andrew's scandal look tame by comparison. The Queen is heartbroken. She loved Meghan. She trusted her. Now that trust is in pieces." But others warned against jumping to conclusions. "This is a complicated case," a royal historian said during a BBC interview. "We need to be cautious. If Meghan is innocent, this could be the most egregious character assassination in modern royal history. But if she isn't, it will be the biggest betrayal the monarchy has ever seen." As the first day of the trial loomed closer, the question on everyone's lips grew louder and more insistent. Did Meghan Markle ever give birth to Archie? And if not, how far would she go to protect the secret? The courtroom doors creaked open, and for the first time, the world saw the woman at the center of the storm. Grace Holloway stepped into the blinding flash of cameras, her face pale, but her posture unwavering. She was not a celebrity, nor a socialite, nor anyone who had previously sought the spotlight. Yet here she was, standing in front of a packed press gallery and the eyes of millions glued to live streams, about to confront Meghan Markle in what was already being called the trial of the century. Grace's story was simple on its surface, yet harrowing in its depth. She was a 31-year-old woman from Surrey who had worked as a teaching assistant in a local primary school. In her court statement, Grace claimed that in early 2019 she discovered she was pregnant after a brief and complicated relationship with a man she would not name publicly. At the time, she was struggling to make ends meet and had sought prenatal care at a private clinic where she believed she would receive more attention than through the public health system. According to Grace, her pregnancy was unremarkable until her due date approached. At 8.5 months, she said she began receiving visits from strangers, men in suits, women with crisp folders, and doctors she hadn't seen before. They asked her about her financial situation, her support system, and whether she believed she could provide a stable environment for her child. She thought nothing of it at first, assuming it was standard social work protocol. But as she entered her 9th month, things took a darker turn. Grace recounted how she was admitted to the clinic 2 weeks before her due date under the pretense of monitoring for complications. Once there, she claimed she was sedated, and when she woke, her baby was gone. "They told me he was stillborn," Grace said in court, her voice cracking as she gripped the witness stand. "I didn't even get to see him. They said it was for my own good, that I should focus on healing." But months later, Grace's world shattered again when she saw a photograph on the front page of a magazine. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, holding a newborn baby in Windsor Castle. Grace said her heart stopped. "I knew," she whispered. "The shape of his nose, the curve of his chin, a mother knows." That was my son. At first, she tried to dismiss the thought, telling herself it was grief playing cruel tricks on her mind. But then, a friend confided that she too saw a resemblance. Another acquaintance suggested Grace request a copy of her medical records, but when she tried, she was told the clinic had closed down and all files were misplaced. For months, Grace wrestled with her doubts and her grief. But it wasn't until an anonymous envelope arrived at her door that she found the courage to act. Inside was a copy of what appeared to be Archie's DNA report, the same report that would later leak to the press. The results confirmed no maternal link between Meghan and Archie. "I thought I was going insane," Grace said through tears. "But when I saw that report, I knew I wasn't crazy. My baby was alive. And she." Grace pointed across the courtroom to Meghan. She was raising him as her own. The courtroom fell silent. Even Meghan's legal team appeared momentarily unsettled. Meghan sat still, her lips pursed, her hands clenched so tightly around her lap that her knuckles had turned white. But the Duchess's lead attorney quickly moved to discredit Grace's account. "This is nothing but a fabrication," he said sternly. "Ms. Holloway is exploiting a moment of public fascination to insert herself into the narrative of a royal family she has never met. The so-called DNA report is an obvious forgery, and we have expert witnesses prepared to testify to that fact. Furthermore, Ms. Markle has medical documentation proving that she carried and delivered her son in May of 2019. Still, the cracks were beginning to show. During cross-examination, Grace's attorney asked Meghan's team to present the original birth records from Portland Hospital. The request was met with hesitation. The court ordered the documents to be delivered within 48 hours. Outside the courthouse, tensions flared. Protesters chanted Grace's name, holding up photos of her and digitally altered images of what Archie might look like as a toddler standing beside her. Others carried signs defending Meghan. "This is a smear campaign," and "Stand with Meghan." But even as public opinion divided, one thing became clear: Grace Holloway's voice would not be silenced. In an emotional television interview that aired that night, Grace sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap, her eyes red but determined. "I don't care about the fame or the money," she said softly. "I just want my son to know I never stopped loving him. I want him to know I fought for him." The interview quickly went viral. Clips flooded social media, drawing tears from viewers around the world. But not everyone believed her. Meghan's defenders labeled Grace an opportunist, accusing her of being paid by Meghan's enemies to launch a smear campaign. Yet for every accusation, Grace had an answer. "If I'm lying, why won't they show the hospital records?" she asked. "Why won't they take another DNA test in front of the court?" As the next court session approached, anticipation reached a fever pitch. Behind closed doors, Harry was said to be crumbling. According to palace insiders, he begged Meghan to agree to a new DNA test to put the rumors to rest. Meghan reportedly refused, telling him, "We don't have to prove anything to anyone." But Harry's doubts were growing. A close friend revealed in an interview that the prince had been overheard saying, "What if Grace is telling the truth? What if I've been living a lie?" For Meghan, the stakes could not have been higher. If Grace's claims were proven, not only would she lose custody of Archie, but she could also face criminal charges for fraud, kidnapping, and perjury. And for the royal family, the potential fallout was catastrophic. "This isn't just about Meghan and Harry," one royal historian said grimly. "This is about the integrity of the monarchy itself. If the courts rule that Archie was not Meghan's biological child, then every royal protocol breached to accommodate the Sussexes could be called into question." As Grace prepared to return to court for the next hearing, she clutched a small, worn-out teddy bear. "It was his," she whispered to a journalist. "Before they took him, I kept it all this time, praying I'd hold him again one day." The question on everyone's lips echoed louder with each passing hour. Could Grace Holloway really be Archie's biological mother? And if she was, how had Meghan Markle pulled off what some were now calling the greatest deception in royal history? The whispers had been there from the beginning, buried deep in the underbelly of royal gossip circles and online conspiracy forums. But until now, they had been dismissed as noise, baseless speculation fueled by Meghan Markle's decision to keep her pregnancy and Archie's birth unusually private. Yet with the court case raging and Grace Holloway's testimony echoing across the globe, those whispers were growing louder, more insistent. Was there, in fact, a deliberate and calculated plot to pass off another woman's child as Meghan's own? In court filings and late-night television exposés, a chilling narrative began to take shape. Grace's legal team painted a picture of a duchess determined to secure her position in the royal hierarchy, even if it meant crossing ethical and legal lines no one thought possible. At the heart of Grace's accusation was the claim that Meghan had orchestrated an elaborate scheme months before Archie's birth, enlisting the help of powerful individuals who could make her plan possible and keep it secret. According to Grace's attorneys, the plot began quietly, with Meghan allegedly approaching a select group of advisors who could help her navigate the optics of a royal pregnancy. Their first hurdle was timing. By the time Meghan and Harry announced their pregnancy in October 2018, Meghan was already several months along, or so the public believed. But Grace's team suggested that the Duchess may have staged her pregnancy from the start, using strategic wardrobe choices and carefully choreographed public appearances to suggest the progression of a baby bump. They were meticulous, Grace's attorney said in court. Every appearance, every photograph, every angle was analyzed in advance to ensure nothing would give the truth away. To support this claim, they presented video clips and photographs where Meghan's bump appeared to shift in size and position from one event to the next. One clip showed Meghan bending down to pick up a fallen bouquet, and online sleuths had long pointed out how her stomach seemed to flatten unnaturally as she moved. At the time, the moment was brushed off as a trick of the camera. Now, under the glare of the DNA scandal, it was being re-examined with fresh suspicion. But if Meghan had not carried Archie, where had the baby come from? This is where the story darkened even further. Grace Holloway alleged that her baby had been targeted as part of a covert arrangement. She claimed that in the final weeks of her pregnancy, she was placed under surveillance and pressured by unidentified intermediaries to consider adoption. Grace, struggling financially and emotionally, felt vulnerable. "I didn't know I was being set up," Grace said tearfully in court. "They said they wanted to help me, that they knew a family who could give my son a better life. I told them no. Again and again, I told them no." But her defiance, she claimed, only made the pressure more intense. Grace alleged that a social worker arrived at her door weeks before her due date, accompanied by two men in tailored suits who refused to give their names. They allegedly warned her that if she didn't cooperate, she might lose her baby anyway. Then came the night Grace went into labor. She recalled arriving at the clinic where she was registered for delivery, only to be transferred to a private suite with unfamiliar doctors. Within hours, she said, she was heavily sedated despite asking to remain alert during the birth. "I woke up alone," Grace said in her statement. "No baby, no explanation, just a nurse telling me it was over and I should focus on recovery." Grace said she believed her son had died, until she saw the photo of Meghan and Harry presenting Archie to the world. Meghan's attorneys denied every word of Grace's account, calling it a fantasy rooted in delusion and fueled by malicious actors seeking to destroy a good woman's reputation. They presented Meghan's own medical records showing prenatal appointments and ultrasounds, as well as statements from Portland hospital staff confirming Meghan's presence during the birth. Yet Grace's lawyers challenged these documents, suggesting that they could have been falsified as part of a broader cover-up. "This isn't just about one woman and her baby," Grace's attorney declared in court. "This is about power, privilege, and the lengths to which people will go to protect an illusion." Outside the courtroom, the public was split. Supporters of Meghan pointed to her years of media vilification, arguing that she had become the perfect target for an elaborate smear campaign. "They hate her because she broke the mold," one fan tweeted. "Because she's biracial, because she married Harry, because she wouldn't bow to the tabloids. This is payback." But skeptics weren't so sure. "Too many things don't add up," a royal commentator said during a live news broadcast. "The secrecy, the inconsistencies, the amended birth certificate. If Meghan really has nothing to hide, why won't she submit to an independent DNA test?" Even within Harry and Meghan's inner circle, the strain was beginning to show. Sources close to the couple said Harry was desperate for answers and tormented by doubt. "He loves Meghan deeply," one insider explained. "But he's not blind. He knows there have been oddities around Archie's birth, and now those oddities are haunting him." To complicate matters, a former royal aide stepped forward with a shocking claim. That in the weeks before Archie's birth, Meghan had arranged for special security measures at Portland Hospital that excluded even senior medical staff from entering her suite without clearance. Everything about it was unusual, the aide said in an anonymous interview. It was as if they didn't want anyone to see what was really happening. With each passing day, the web of alleged deception seemed to grow more intricate. The public demanded answers. The press demanded access. And Grace Holloway demanded her son back. As the judge ordered both parties to prepare for DNA testing under court supervision, the tension reached a fever pitch. Would Meghan comply? Or would she risk everything to keep the secret buried? Been the rebel royal, the one willing to break the rules, to step away from tradition in search of freedom and love. When he fell for Meghan Markle, the world watched a man who seemed to have found his anchor, his purpose beyond the monarchy. But now, as the courtroom battle over Archie's parentage consumed headlines and tore apart public opinion, Harry found himself at the center of a storm he could neither stop nor escape. The man who had walked away from Buckingham Palace for the promise of a peaceful life in Montecito was now caught between two devastating realities: the wife he had sacrificed everything to protect, and the haunting possibility that Grace Holloway's accusations might be true. For weeks, Harry had remained silent, refusing interviews and declining to comment even as paparazzi hounded him outside his California estate. But those close to him painted a picture of a man unraveling. Harry's not sleeping. He's not eating. He's barely speaking to anyone. A longtime friend confided to a British tabloid. He wants so badly to believe Meghan, but in his quiet moments, he keeps asking, what if Grace isn't lying? Behind the gates of the sprawling mansion he and Meghan shared with Archie, the atmosphere had grown tense and cold. Insiders claimed that Harry and Meghan were sleeping in separate bedrooms. At night, Harry was said to pace the halls, staring out into the darkness, consumed by memories of Archie's birth. He recalled how strange everything had seemed, even then. Unlike royal tradition, which demanded transparency during royal births, Meghan had insisted on total privacy. There were no midwives Harry recognized from St. Mary's Hospital, no royal doctors overseeing the delivery. Instead, Meghan's medical team was made up of unfamiliar faces, all working behind closed doors under heavy security. At the time, Harry chalked it up to Meghan's anxiety over the press and the couple's determination to protect their child. But now, in the wake of Grace's lawsuit and the leaked DNA report, those choices seemed to take on a sinister weight. He thought they were building a safe bubble around their family, the friend continued. But now he's wondering if she was building a wall to keep him out of the truth. In court, Harry sat beside Meghan each day, his face a mask of anguish. He held her hand tightly, but his eyes often drifted to Grace Holloway, who sat across the aisle clutching a crumpled photograph of a newborn baby. Harry couldn't deny the resemblance. The curve of the child's lips, the shape of the nose. It stirred something deep and unsettling in him. I keep thinking about the first time I held Archie, Harry was overheard telling a close aide. I remember the weight of him in my arms. But now, I don't know what to believe anymore. Was that even my son? Publicly, Meghan maintained her composure, insisting that the accusations against her were part of a coordinated smear campaign. But behind closed doors, she reportedly clashed with Harry over how to handle the mounting pressure. Why should we prove ourselves to anyone? Meghan was said to have snapped during one heated argument. We've done nothing wrong. This is our private life, and they're not entitled to it. But Harry was not convinced. This isn't just about us anymore, he reportedly told her. It's about Archie. If there's even the slightest chance Grace is telling the truth, we have to know. At Meghan's insistence, Harry refrained from making any public statements. But as the days passed, whispers emerged that he had quietly reached out to Grace's legal team, requesting a private meeting. The meeting, if it happened, was never confirmed. But speculation ran wild after Grace appeared outside the courthouse one morning, her eyes red and swollen, clutching a small stuffed animal. He's a good man, she said cryptically to reporters. I think he knows the truth in his heart. Back in London, the royal family watched in horror as the scandal unfolded. Prince William, who had not spoken to Harry in months, was reportedly furious. He's brought shame on all of us. William was overheard telling a confidant. This was always going to end in disaster. Even Queen Elizabeth, known for her stoicism, was said to be deeply troubled. Palace sources claim she had reached out to Harry personally, urging him to come home and seek clarity before it was too late. But Harry stayed in California, torn between two worlds and two women. His wife, who insisted she was the victim of a witch hunt, and the woman who claimed to be the mother of his child. As the next court date approached, Harry was photographed alone on the beach near his Montecito home, staring out at the waves as the sun dipped below the horizon. In that moment, he looked not like a prince, nor a husband, nor a father, but like a man lost in a nightmare of secrets and doubt. Harry's in an impossible position, a royal historian told a news program. If he supports Meghan unconditionally and she's proven guilty, he looks like a fool. If he turns against her and she's innocent, he'll be branded the ultimate betrayer. There's no way out for him. For the man who had once been the golden boy of the House of Windsor, the road ahead had never looked darker. And as the world waited for Harry to make a move, one question hung heavy in the air. Would he choose loyalty to Meghan, or the truth about Archie? The royal family has long been a fortress of tradition, protocol, and careful control of its public image. Behind the grandeur of Buckingham Palace and the stately facades of royal residences lies a web of power, loyalty, and sometimes simmering tension. And when the news of Meghan Markle's scandal broke, a leaked DNA report suggesting Archie was not her biological son and a woman claiming to be his true mother taking legal action, the palace walls trembled with silent fury. At first, Buckingham Palace issued the customary statement. This is a private matter and will not be addressed publicly. But those words belied the storm raging within. Sources inside the royal household revealed a palace gripped by disbelief, heartbreak, and anger. Queen Elizabeth II, the steadfast matriarch who had weathered decades of royal crises, was reportedly devastated. Close aides described her as quietly broken, retreating from public appearances and spending long hours in private reflection. Her Majesty had a special fondness for Meghan, one insider said. She believed in her, trusted her, and thought she could bring a breath of fresh air to the monarchy. Now, she feels betrayed. Prince Charles, heir apparent and a man well acquainted with controversy, was said to be seething with rage. This scandal is an embarrassment beyond words, a palace official confided. It threatens everything my mother has worked to protect. Charles is furious, not just with Meghan, but with Harry for allowing this mess to spiral out of control. Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, was reportedly the most outspoken. His relationship with Harry had been strained since Megxit, and this latest scandal only deepened the rift. William views this as a personal and public disaster, said a royal insider. He believes Harry has made catastrophic mistakes, and now the entire family is paying the price. Despite the silence in public, palace staff were bracing for fallout. Security measures were heightened around key members of the family, with fears that protests and media frenzy could escalate into chaos. Advisors began preparing contingency plans for damage control, including potential statements, public appearances, and the management of social media narratives. Inside the family, conversations were terse and fraught with emotion. A trusted source revealed that Queen Elizabeth called a private meeting with Charles, William, and senior advisors to discuss the crisis. There was talk of potential damage to the monarchy's image, the impact on public trust, and the need to protect the institution at all costs. But what most alarmed the family was the potential legal and moral implications. If the courts ruled in favor of Grace Holloway, it would not only confirm the DNA report's authenticity, but also call into question every royal protocol that had been bent or broken to accommodate Meghan and Harry since their wedding. Royal historians noted that the Sussexes had already been viewed as renegades within the family, pushing boundaries and breaking tradition. This scandal could be the final nail in the coffin for their royal standing, one expert said. It could redefine what it means to be royal in the 21st century. In private conversations, senior courtiers expressed disbelief that Meghan and Harry would take such risks. They never imagined this would come to light, said one aide. Now they face a reckoning that could be worse than anything we've seen in recent memory. Meanwhile, the palace's relationship with the media entered a new phase. For years, the press had alternated between leonizing and demonizing Meghan. But with the DNA scandal unfolding live, the balance shifted. Some outlets doubled down on support, calling the allegations smear tactics and warning against rush judgments. Others published relentless exposés, dissecting every angle of the case with sensational headlines. Public opinion polls showed a sharp decline in approval ratings for the Sussexes, with many Britons expressing shock and disappointment. A leading pollster noted, "The royal family is highly respected, but the Sussexes' reputation has taken a significant hit in recent weeks." Yet in the midst of turmoil, some voices within the royal circle urged caution. An anonymous senior official pleaded, "We must remember this is a family. Personal pain should not become a public spectacle. We must wait for the truth to emerge." But with the next court date looming, patience was running thin. The palace was bracing for more revelations, more accusations, and the possibility that this scandal could reshape the monarchy forever. Outside Buckingham Palace, protesters gathered daily, some demanding justice for Grace Holloway, others rallying in support of Meghan and Harry. The once unified royal image was fractured, and the echoes of discord reached far beyond palace gates. As journalists speculated about the Queen's next move and royal watchers debated the future of the Sussexes, one truth was clear. The royal family was in the eye of a historic storm, silent but seething, watching as the drama unfolded with a mixture of heartbreak and fury. And the question everyone inside and outside the palace was asking, could the monarchy survive this? The morning of the first major court hearing arrived with a palpable sense of anticipation and tension. Reporters and photographers swarmed the area outside London's High Court from dawn, their lenses trained on the grand entrance where Meghan Markle, flanked by a team of legal advisors, was expected to appear. Inside, the courtroom was already packed to capacity, with media representatives, royal watchers, and legal experts eager to witness the unfolding of what many were calling the trial of the century. As the clock ticked closer to the start time, the atmosphere grew electric. Security personnel moved swiftly, ensuring that the courtroom remained orderly even as murmurs and whispers rippled through the crowd. For Meghan, the stakes could not have been higher. Sitting beside her was Prince Harry, his face a mask of stoic concern, fingers entwined tightly with hers. On the opposite side, Grace Holloway entered with a quiet determination. No celebrity entourage followed her. There were no flashes, no fanfare. Just a woman driven by a fierce maternal instinct and an unshakable belief that the child she carried was being held from her. The judge called the session to order, immediately setting a serious tone. Opening statements from both sides framed the battle ahead. Grace's legal team portrayed the case as a mother's desperate fight to reclaim the son who was taken from her under false pretenses. The lawyer's voice was steady but charged with emotion as he laid out the allegations of forged documents, coerced adoption, and the shocking DNA findings that called Meghan's maternity into question. Ms. Holloway's claim is not simply a matter of custody, he said. It is a question of identity, truth, and justice. The evidence we will present will reveal a web of deception that reaches to the highest levels of power. Meghan's counsel responded swiftly, calling the allegations baseless and defamatory. They emphasized Meghan's documented pregnancy, her public appearances throughout, and her legal rights as the child's mother. This case is a calculated attack designed to damage the Duchess's reputation and family, they argued. There is no credible evidence to support Ms. Holloway's claims. As the hearing progressed, the drama intensified. At one point, Grace herself was called to the stand. With trembling hands and a voice that broke at times, she recounted the emotional trauma of her pregnancy, the night of Archie's birth, and the heartbreak of losing her son. The courtroom was silent, save for the occasional sniffle from audience members. The judge listened intently, occasionally jotting notes. Meghan's lawyers attempted to undermine Grace's testimony by highlighting inconsistencies and questioning her motives. Yet, Grace's unwavering demeanor and the poignancy of her story left a mark on those present. Outside the courtroom, supporters of both women clashed verbally. Demonstrators shouted slogans and waved placards, the air thick with passion and division. Social media exploded with live updates, polls, and heated debates. Was Meghan innocent? Was Grace the victim? Could there be a middle ground? Or was this a battle destined to tear families apart? In a particularly tense moment, Grace broke from the crowd and screamed toward Meghan's entrance. "That's my son. You stole him. You're going to jail." Security swiftly intervened, escorting Grace away as the media captured the raw emotion. The footage spread like wildfire, dominating news cycles and fueling the story's intensity. As the day drew to a close, it was clear that the courtroom drama was far from over. The judge adjourned the hearing but set a schedule for further proceedings, including forensic examinations and expert testimonies. The world was watching, and every revelation had the potential to rewrite history. In the quiet moments after the courtroom emptied, Meghan and Harry retreated to their private chambers. The weight of the accusations hung heavily in the air. Harry whispered, "We have to stay strong, for Archie's sake." Meghan nodded, eyes filled with resolve. But beneath the surface, doubt and fear lingered. This was no ordinary legal battle. It was a fight for truth, identity, and the future of a family under siege. And as the next chapters unfolded, the lines between loyalty and betrayal, love and loss, would blur beyond recognition. From the courtroom's tense atmosphere, the battle lines quickly sharpened. Meghan's legal team, led by a seasoned barrister renowned for handling high-profile defamation cases, launched a fierce counterattack aimed at dismantling Grace Holloway's allegations piece by piece. Their strategy was clear: portray the biological mother's claims as not only baseless, but as part of a deliberate attempt to extort money and destroy Meghan's reputation. In a press conference held mere hours after the first hearing, Meghan's lead counsel spoke with measured certainty. "These accusations are utterly false and defamatory," he declared. "Ms. Holloway's lawsuit is nothing more than an opportunistic assault designed to profit from a manufactured scandal. We intend to expose the truth in court and restore the Duchess's good name." Behind closed doors, the defense team submitted a barrage of documents. Medical records showing Meghan's consistent prenatal care, multiple ultrasounds confirming the pregnancy timeline, and affidavits from Portland hospital staff affirming that Meghan was present throughout her delivery. They also introduced testimony from an expert forensic pathologist who reviewed the leaked DNA report and concluded it was highly suspicious and likely forged. This expert argued that the lab seals were inconsistent with those used by certified facilities and that the sample handling raised serious questions. But the most compelling moment came when Meghan herself addressed the court. In a rare personal statement, she expressed heartbreak and frustration over the allegations. "I carried Archie for 9 months," Meghan said quietly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I faced challenges that no one can imagine. These accusations have shattered my family and threatened the life of my child. I will fight every day to protect him and our truth." The courtroom was moved. Even some who had been skeptical found themselves empathizing with her ordeal. Yet, the defense did not shy away from attacking Grace's credibility. They presented evidence suggesting that Grace had a history of mental health struggles and financial difficulties, implying she might be motivated by desperation or manipulation. In one particularly dramatic moment, a private investigator hired by Meghan's team testified that he had uncovered emails allegedly sent by Grace to tabloid reporters, hinting at plans to sell the story for profit. "This is not about a mother's love," the investigator said. "It's about a calculated scheme to exploit public fascination and extract money." Social media erupted with divided opinion. Supporters of Meghan hailed the defense's presentation as a vindication, while advocates for Grace cried foul, accusing the defense of character assassination and intimidation tactics. Amid the legal sparring, Meghan's allies worked tirelessly behind the scenes to control the narrative. Public relations experts arranged exclusive interviews, released carefully curated photos of Meghan and Archie, and emphasized the Duchess's role as a devoted mother and philanthropist. But as the trial dragged on, whispers emerged of internal tensions within the Sussex household. Sources close to the couple claimed Meghan was growing increasingly anxious and defensive, while Harry was reportedly caught between supporting his wife and grappling with his own doubts. The media seized on every fragment of information, amplifying rumors of marital strain and private disputes. Analysts speculated whether the pressure might be driving a wedge between the once-united couple. Yet, through it all, Meghan maintained a fierce public front, refusing to concede an inch to her accusers. As the court prepared to hear new evidence and expert testimony in the coming weeks, the message was clear: Meghan would not go down without a fight. And with so much at stake, the truth, her family's future, and her legacy, the battle lines were drawn in the sand. Midway through the trial, the drama took an unexpected turn that sent shockwaves through both camps. A whistleblower, an anonymous former employee of Portland Hospital, stepped forward with documents and testimony that challenged key elements of Meghan's version of events. The whistleblower claimed to have access to internal hospital records indicating discrepancies in the official birth documentation of Archie. Among these were unsigned notes, unexplained alterations in patient logs, and a record of a private transfer on the day of Archie's birth that didn't align with the public narrative. In a confidential deposition leaked to the press, the whistleblower described an atmosphere of secrecy and pressure within the maternity ward. Nurses and staff were allegedly instructed to avoid discussions about Meghan's delivery and to limit access to her private suite. This revelation added fuel to Grace Holloway's legal team, who argued that the hospital itself was complicit in concealing the truth. The evidence suggests a coordinated effort to fabricate and hide details regarding Archie's birth, Grace's attorney stated during a court hearing. In response, Meghan's legal team denounced the whistleblower as unreliable, accusing them of breaching confidentiality agreements and seeking personal gain. They provided counter-testimony from hospital administrators insisting that all procedures had been properly followed and documented. Meanwhile, forensic experts were brought in to scrutinize the leaked DNA report that had ignited the entire scandal. Multiple independent labs were commissioned to conduct their own analyses. The initial findings were inconclusive, with some experts cautioning about the potential for sample contamination or clerical errors. Others noted that while the report's conclusions were startling, they could not be definitively confirmed without retesting under court supervision. This back and forth of expert opinions left the public and the court in a state of suspense. Each new revelation seemed to raise more questions than answers. Journalists uncovered that several staff members who had worked in the maternity ward at the time were now refusing to testify, citing fear of reprisals. A few former employees requested anonymity, speaking of unusual pressures and instructions to maintain silence. As the trial progressed, the media frenzy intensified. Headlines shouted about the Portland Hospital cover-up and the secret life of Archie's birth. Public opinion shifted unpredictably, with some convinced of Meghan's innocence and others growing increasingly skeptical. At the same time, social media platforms were flooded with conspiracy theories and rumors, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction. For Harry and Meghan, the mounting pressure was unbearable. Sources close to the couple reported that they were increasingly isolated, limiting public appearances and confining themselves to their California estate. Amid this turmoil, one thing remained certain. The bombshell evidence had shattered the previous narrative and forced everyone involved to reconsider what they thought they knew. As the judge prepared to weigh the new information, the stakes had never been higher. Would the court order a full DNA retest? Would the hospital's role in the alleged cover-up be exposed? The answers lay ahead, but the path forward was murky and fraught with uncertainty. As the trial unfolded and fresh evidence emerged, public opinion began to shift dramatically. The once clear lines of loyalty were blurring, with many longtime supporters of Meghan Markle starting to question the narrative they had embraced. Social media became a battleground where millions debated fiercely. Hashtags supporting both Meghan and Grace trended daily, with passionate voices on both sides flooding platforms like X, Instagram, and TikTok. Influencers and celebrities weighed in, some defending Meghan's character and motherhood, while others expressed empathy for Grace Holloway's fight. Opinion polls showed a marked decline in Meghan's favorability ratings, especially in the United Kingdom. Many Britons, once enamored by her fairy tale wedding and her efforts to modernize the monarchy, now expressed confusion and disappointment. A leading pollster noted, "This scandal has unsettled the public. People feel betrayed and want transparency." Tabloid headlines screamed with sensational claims. Meghan's motherhood questioned, Archie's true origins revealed, and royal family divided. These stories were often accompanied by leaked documents, anonymous insider quotes, and expert analyses, adding layers of complexity to the public's understanding or misunderstanding of the case. At the same time, online forums and comment sections became hotbeds for conspiracy theories. Some claim the entire case was a royal hit job, a scheme orchestrated by palace insiders to discredit Meghan and Harry. Others argued it was a personal vendetta by Grace Holloway, fueled by desperation and a hunger for fame. Meanwhile, traditional media outlets scrambled to provide balanced coverage, inviting legal experts, royal historians, and psychologists to analyze the unfolding drama. Debates raged over the ethics of such a public battle over a child's identity and the implications for the monarchy's future. In this swirl of opinions, former friends and aides of Meghan stepped forward anonymously, adding more fuel to the fire. One close confidant described Meghan as paranoid and isolated, while another expressed surprise at the extraordinary lengths she allegedly went to control the narrative around Archie's birth. Yet, other insiders defended her fiercely, portraying Meghan as a victim caught in an impossible situation, fighting for her family against relentless media scrutiny and palace politics. The polarization was stark and growing. Even charities and organizations focused on child welfare issued statements urging compassion and privacy for all involved, warning against judgment before the court's final ruling. In the midst of this storm, Harry's public image also suffered. As he maintained a low profile, commentators speculated about his role, whether he was a supportive husband caught in the crossfire or a man silently questioning everything he believed. Royal watchers noted the absence of joint public appearances by the Sussexes, interpreting it as a sign of strain. Rumors swirled about private counseling sessions and attempts at damage control behind closed doors. The intense media focus and public scrutiny took a toll on Archie's well-being. Advocates for children's rights decried the use of a child as a symbol in such a bitter dispute and called for respectful treatment of the young boy's privacy. As public opinion wavered and emotions ran high, the court prepared for the next phase of the trial. The verdict seemed farther away than ever, with both sides digging in for a prolonged legal battle. One thing was clear: the story had transcended the courtroom. It was now a global phenomenon, touching on themes of identity, family, power, and truth. And as millions waited, the question loomed large. Could public opinion ultimately influence the outcome of this unprecedented royal scandal?